Hey, Cards fans, welcome back to the pod. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Benjamin Hochman, alongside Javier and I. He's a sports columnist for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, his hometown paper. He's also covered the Nuggets for the Denver Post and worked for the New Orleans Times Picayune, covering Tulane. Mr. Hochman is the author of 4 books and the creator of the short video series 10 Hochman. Welcome to the show, Mr. Hochman.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Javi, do you want to start with the first question?
So, recently, as it kind of tends to be that way with Cardinals baseball, the last few months always seem to be kind of our best. We tend to start playing a lot better. We get closer to the postseason and things start to buzz again. Individual players start to play better as well. But as a team, I'm interested in why you think that towards the end of the season, St. Louis tends to play better baseball.
That's a great question because I could answer it just for 2022, but you're absolutely right. The last few years, there's been these great surges, especially in August and September. So I don't necessarily know if it's the Cardinal Devils. What is it? The Cardinal Devil Magic?
Yeah, Devil Magic.
Yeah. But there's no question. And a lot of it honestly goes back to Mike Shildt, who was pressing the right buttons often in August and September, even that first year when he took over from Mike Matheny. So if we're talking about the past, we've got to give credit to Mike Shildt in that regard. But this year, they're hitting home runs, right? I saw the stat where they've had the third most home runs in franchise history for a month in this month, August. Well, I guess not anymore. It's now September of August of 2022. Third most ever in Cardinals history. And one of those years was April of 2000, which had, Mark McGwire going and Edmonds and the whole thing. So, yeah, they're hitting the heck out of the baseball. And, oh, by the way, they added 2 starting pitchers, and they seldom lose those games when those guys start.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you wrote 11 and 11, a book dedicated to the magical 2011 World Series winning team. Do you see any parallels between that team and the team of the present?
That's another good question. Well, heck, they've got 3 of the same guys, right? Wainwright didn't pitch that year, but he called himself the league's best cheerleader on the bench in the dugout. Of course, Albert and Yachty. Similarities, yes, in this regard. You've got these rookie contributors. The 2011 team was so special because guys like John Jay and Alan Craig, they just rose to the moment. Daniel Descalso even were huge contributors on that team as rookies. Well, of course, you look at the 2022 Cardinals, they could have the guy that comes in third in the Rookie of the Year and Brendan Donovan. Nolan Gorman hits baseballs hard when he connects with the baseball, and Andre Palante contributing as well. So there's definitely parallels there. And yeah, you need mashers in the middle of the lineup, right? And they had Berkman, Holiday, and Pujols that led the way. Well, this year you got Goldschmidt, Arenado, and then sometimes it is Pujols himself, and other times earlier in the year, and now actually in recent games, Tyler O'Neill.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about younger players, and he's no longer a rookie anymore. But Tommy Edman, not necessarily a power guy. He's definitely more of the contact guy and better of a defender. He's hit a few home runs actually recently already in this season, which is fun to see. But his wins above replacement just always seems to get higher and higher. And I think he led the league MLB only like a few months back in the middle of the summer. But I feel like a lot of people tend to, undervalue how much of a good player he is, especially defensively for the Cardinals. I want to know what your opinion about like the actual value of Tommy Edman is, and if we should try our best to keep him on the team for the future.
Yeah, it's simple as this. Like, and I'm way older than you guys, but when I was growing up, the Cardinals had the secret weapon, Jose Oquendo, and Jose Oquendo, his thing was that he could play all 9 positions. One season, he literally did that. He played at least 1 inning at all 9 positions, including catcher. Oquendo was valuable because, yeah, if you needed a guy to play the outfield one day, he'd play the outfield one day. second base the next day. You see where this is going. Well, Tommy Edman is doing that, but at a higher level. You mentioned his fielding. He literally leads baseball in, I believe it's defensive run saves, or one of the fancy analytics that looks at defense. He's literally the best, and he plays more than one position. So, I mean, you just think about that, right? It's like being the best at, I'm making this up, like in school, like being the best at both history and math. You know, like it's you can be good at one of them, but good God, to be the best at both. So, yeah, I mean, Edmonds, his hitting has gone down a little bit. That being said, who hit the huge home run a couple nights ago in St. Louis against Atlanta? It was Tommy Edman. Yeah, he's super valuable because of his glove, because of his switch hitting. And, yeah, I don't think they want to let him go. I don't think that's going to happen.
All right. Your colleague, Benjamin Fredrickson, wrote an article about supporting the implementation of robotic umpires. Do you agree with that? And what do you think about other new rules in baseball?
Yeah, I mean, umpires are also human beings, and they're, in this case, men with possibly families and grandkids. And so you have to handle it delicately in regards to if you're going to be cutting down on the number of umpires or even their rules, like the dignity aspect of it. If someone came in and said, we're stripping you of all your responsibilities at work, it might hurt your feelings or what have you. But the reality is we're seeing this in numerous important games. Huge calls are being blown and with balls and strikes. So, yeah, I'm all for making sure that a strike is a strike and a ball is a ball. And if it takes technology to get us there, then I'm fine with it. Just handle it delicately with the men, and their jobs going forward. And the other thing, and you guys are in Springfield, so you've experienced something I haven't yet, and that's the pitch clock. And maybe you can tell me just how that speeds up the game from a fan standpoint, sitting in the stands. I've heard great things about this. I can't wait.
Yeah, I've loved the pitch clock watching Springfield games down here. Obviously, it definitely helps with the whole pace of play, but it gives the entirety of the baseball game a rhythm. Even like when they're not playing in the in between innings, you can still kind of feel the flow of it going because they have to get the ball, get set, get ready to throw. And I love it for both reasons. We call it the pitch clock, but it also is for a little bit of the batter too, because if the batter's not in the box in time, they can get a strike called on them and you can strike them out in 2 pitches. But I've really enjoyed it. It has been a very enjoyable experience for me, especially trying to bring my friends who aren't necessarily really big baseball fans. They're not just sitting there being like, why is he just standing there and throwing over to the other guy? And then I have to explain, well, it's the strategy. Okay. Like it's like a mind game. But the pitch clock, I think, is absolutely fantastic, and I'm all for that coming in as soon as possible.
Me too. That's cool.
What about banning the shift? Do you like that?
I've changed my mind on that. Originally, when shifts got so popular, I was like, this isn't baseball. What is this? You got 2 second basemen in this scenario. But the more I've thought about it, first of all, they have been shifting in baseball since the 1940s, just not on every batter. I mean, there's photographs of the World Series, Ted Williams against the St. Louis Cardinals, and a shift was there. So the strategy's always been there. Now it's just obviously at a higher level. I think I'm okay with the shift still existing. It doesn't make me happy when a guy hits a line, like a super hard 100-mile-per-hour ground ball right up the middle, and there's a guy there fielding it, because like that was always like a hit, right? Growing up, especially if you hit 100 miles per hour, like you've hit a hard single up the middle, you've earned the hit. But the reality is, it's all about adjustments, right? And even someone like Matt Carpenter's had to make adjustments playing for the Yankees this year with his hitting. I think they should not ban the shift. But I don't think there's 100% agreement with me on that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you going back to the fact that you are a reporter and a fantastic one at that, you usually write about baseball, but you're able to connect and showcase a lot of the emotional stories behind the sporting events like baseball. Specifically in St. Louis baseball, how do you think that it is such a unique way to bring people together? Why do you think St. Louis just absolutely loves the sport and it connects things with like Cardinal Glenn and Homers for Health and all stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. These are all great questions. And when you look at St. Louis and baseball, this relationship, it really is part of the culture. And I'm not knocking San Diego or Seattle or Arlington or any of these other towns that have Major League Baseball, but there's something about our city and the way baseball just affects people. And clearly, a huge part of it is the charitable efforts, like you mentioned, of the ball players and the broadcasters and people involved. That's special stuff, right? But I really think the relationship began way before any of us were born, in two regards. One was the growth of radio in America, in St. Louis with KMOX radio.
Yeah.
It was just a very powerful signal. And back when it's hard to even fathom, like the options were limited in regards to content that you could take in. There were like a few radio stations. And if you lived in Franklin, Tennessee, and you liked sports, well, the only sport you're going to be able to hear is this baseball game out of St. Louis, Missouri, with this guy, Stan Musial and Red Shandies. And what are you going to do? You're going to take in the content because there's not much else content to take in. And we see what happens there. And the other thing I was going to bring up is the power of Anheuser-Busch and the brewery and how much promotion they did of the Cardinals to get seemingly everybody in St. Louis on board. And then what is baseball in St. Louis? It's an heirloom. It's passed down to generations, like a father giving a gold watch to a son. That a love of baseball is the same thing, and it's gotten all the way to us here in 2022.
Yeah.
So, have you heard of like John Boy and Foolish Baseball and other like YouTubers?
So I know of John Boy when there happened to be a Cardinals game going on when they dropped the video footage of Oliver Marmol versus umpire C.B. Buckner.
Yeah.
We were watching it on press row at Busch Stadium laughing, and it was fascinating. I don't, however, know the other one. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, he's a like 26-year-old he's very like analytically minded, and he makes videos like analyzing guys' career. Like he has a really good video about Yadier Molina that I think you should watch.
Nice.
So what do you think these content creators in this new age of baseball have done for the sport?
I mean, it's quite simple. And it combines our previous conversation, earlier in our conversation. Some people think baseball is boring, and some 22-year-old boys and girls think baseball is boring. And in 2022, there's so much content. Really, we're weaving together all of our questions here. There's so much content out there. How do you hook these people into this game that some might say is slow and antiquated? Well, it's going to take social media. It's going to take John Boy. It's going to take the content creator that you mentioned. It's going to take you guys and your podcast. And frankly, it's going to take me continuing to evolve as a journalist and a storyteller. I do a daily video every morning on the Post-Dispatch's website. And coincidentally, I just spoke to an editor at the Post-Dispatch about starting a TikTok account. The idea is like, if you want to get young people into your sport, you've got to go to them. They're not just going to come to you because they, you know what I'm saying? So it really what I'm getting at is it keeps the sport alive. It freshens up the game. And for, this sounds like an old guy, but like it makes the game cool.
I totally, me trying to get my friends into watching it who aren't necessarily big, a lot of it, instead of boring them with the analytic parts and doing that stuff, I do have to make it a little more exciting for them. And I think, the minor leagues have been doing a good job at having promotions. Later in the season, they have a college night for colleges down here where it's a $6 ticket with all-inclusive free soda and drink with that. So, that's always one of the biggest games of all time, because, who doesn't love free food? It's fantastic. But as more and more young people try and get to love this sport and get to do it and, experience it, with sports writing for young people, my cousin Alex and I, do you have any, little tidbits of advice, little, secrets of the trade that are not super secret enough that you can share with us to try and get, a wider audience, to try and get to as many people as we can to show our love of the game and give it on to them?
Definitely happy to help with that question. I mean, first of all, right away, you're doing it by creating content now. And I look at it as reps. Like I'm not very strong. I don't go to the gym to lift weights, but we'll use that as the analogy. Think of like, we'll just use Tyler O'Neill. How many times has he lifted weights, right? Repetition and the intensity of it. Well, you creating every time you create something or every time you write something, it's a rep at the gym, and you want to make your muscles as big as possible. So at an age that you're at, or anybody listening, I mean, be proactive. If you're at a college and there's a college newspaper, see if you can get on board to write some articles. And then once you're writing the articles, I always say this, don't settle. It's so easy to just like do I hate to say the bare minimum and get away with it. I mean, I'll read articles even at like high level newspapers, websites, magazines, and I'll be like, golly, that opening reads as if the person, it was just the first thought they had. Like, you don't want to settle. Yeah. You want, especially with your first few paragraphs, you want it to scintillate. You want people to read it and be like, I can't wait to scroll down and read more, or in a newspaper or magazine. Can't wait to turn the page. And that's challenging yourself to be creative, to think outside the box, to look up stats and say things in a way they haven't been said yet or haven't been said before. And like you were talking about Tommy Edman, like there was a piece the other day that just broke down. I can't remember who wrote it, but it just broke down his defensive importance to the Cardinals. Didn't even mention the bat. And it basically just painted that picture, and people are constantly learning and also just continue to read. I mean, we're talking about getting stronger. I mean, every article you read, you learn at least one thing, right? And every article you read, you see how the writer approached the article, and maybe they did it in a poor way, or maybe they did it in a cool way. But each time you're acknowledging that, right? And that's a rep, and that's lifting weights, and that's making your brain stronger. So the more you read, I challenge people to read more and take in more content, but not just breeze through it. Ask themselves, why did I enjoy that? And it's a simple question. Take 5 seconds. I just read an article. Why was that cool? Oh, I really like the comparison they made between Nolan Arenado and Brooks Robinson. Whatever it is, you use your own analytical mindset to analyze the journalism itself, and that'll help your own journalism. And then the last thing, and you're doing it, is just show enthusiasm. I mean, kill them with enthusiasm. People like that. So do that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's fantastic. I know I actually had a friend of mine that you mentioned it who offered me an opportunity that I'm going to take for my college newspaper magazine. They're looking for a sports guy to write stuff. And so my friend came to me and I was like, I'm all for it. Yeah. Gonna have to, obviously, like you said, get the reps in and get a little better as a writer. But I think we're getting there. I think this podcast has been getting better. I mean, right now, this is, our latest one, and in my opinion, the pinnacle so far of what we've done, because we've been able to get you on. We've been getting a lot more people. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that question, because I know I am potentially interested. A lot of other people around are. So thank you.
Definitely. I mean, it's all about attacking an assignment, not surviving an assignment. You know what I mean? And that comes back to the old settling thing I said. Like, anybody can kind of just settle and produce the bare minimum. How can you attack an assignment with your research, your energy, your excitement, passion, your interviewing skills, whatever it is, to create the best content?
All right. So who do you think is the Cardinals catcher of the future?
That's a great question. I wonder if the Cardinals don't know that right now. I wonder if they're going to have to talk to Contreras' agent and see if he's possible to catch. future. Kisner has improved, of course, this year in all facets. So that's good. Herrera, I mean, he's so young, right? I mean,
Yep.
the reality is, I mean, at least we default to the Randy Arozarena example. You know, he comes up with the Cardinals. He's super young. He does not great. So some people are like, oh, well, he's just not going to make it. Let's trade him. Now, clearly, they got some good prospects.
Right. Yes.
But the point of bringing up Randy Arozarena is like he was young that year when he was playing. You know, years later, see it through, and the guy does much better. And we're seeing it with Garcia too. So yeah. Who do I think? I think my guess is Kisner's going to be the starting catcher next year. I don't know, but yeah, I guess I'm dancing around this because I don't have the exact answer. And I think if you got Mozeliak, you know, Rodriguez and Gersh on your podcast, you know, they wouldn't necessarily know either.
Right. You talked about a little bit of that Contreras thing, and I saw that rumor. Do you think that even that rumor in itself is a viable option to even talk about, even considering? Or do you think that you don't think the Cubs would even consider trading away Contreras, let alone to the Cardinals, even in their own division?
Yeah, I mean, the Cubs and Cardinals don't do many deals. If only, and Mozeliak says this when we interview him, and Moises Rodriguez will say the same thing, and Michael Gersh will say the same thing. You don't want to trade a guy and then have him kick your butt for 5 years, right? So that's part of the reason why you don't do it. That said, maybe there could be a win-win situation. So we'll have to see in that regard.
I know. I personally just have this one more thing. I was talking to a Cardinals fan, and I had asked Alex about this last week. Cardinals fan being my father, and he was asking me, he's just like, "What do you think if very last home game of the season, we're doing pretty well. We give Wainwright one at bat, just the one, just to see what happens, to give him kind of a little bit of a curtain call." Maybe a magical, the natural moment, he gets a home run or something like that. Alex and I talked about it a little bit later, but what about you? What do you think about that potential idea?
Well, I love it in theory. And I've thought about it too. It was like, is this guy going to get another bat in the major leagues or not? And then maybe even in like a blowout, you let him get an at bat. But then a small part of me becomes like an old man saying like, what if he gets injured? What if he gets injured? And the odds are super low, but like, of course, if Wainwright pulls an oblique trying to get an at bat in game 160, whatever, against the Pirates. But yeah, I mean, clearly Marmol and Wainwright would talk about it, and I think if they think it's okay, I bet they do it. Especially if the Cardinals clinch before that final series. I think
right.
Fun things with those three dudes, Molina and Pujols and Wainwright.
All right.
Do you have anything else, Alex? I got.
So what do you think it's gonna happen with the rotation when Flaherty gets back? Do you think they'll go to a 6-man rotation? And do you think Dakota Hudson has made his last start?
Great question. I think yes, he's made his last start. I feel bad because like a lot of those hits against Cincinnati were soft contact hits, but he did allow a home run to Romine of all people. So, I mean, that did happen. And it just comes down to like, if these games are, if you're still trying to win the division, and you can replace him with Flaherty, you do it, right? You want your 5 best guys in the rotation. Now, again, if they clinch and you got these games and Hudson's arm is still ready, yeah, maybe you see some Hudson, some Woodford situations like that. But if I'm the manager, yeah, Hudson's not in the rotation, and for the rest of the regular season that matters.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, we're getting there. I I personally feel really good about clinching this postseason spot. I'm excited to see the 3-game series wild card games, see how they go. And I really, I would love that Cinderella story of Pujols, Wainwright, and Molina getting to the World Series. Obviously, hopefully winning it all.
Right.
But yeah, I thank you very much for coming down.
Oh yeah.
Talking to you was fantastic. The insight was great.
Yeah.
I mean, you individually will be a big help, I think, for us moving forward,
Cool.
getting bigger and doing, better things. So thank you very much for coming down. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, it's my honor. Super fun to get to know both of you, and definitely let me know when it's live, and I can retweet the tweets or repost the post.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. You
Take
have a
care,
good rest of your day.
You too.
See ya.